All right. What about now? There we go.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I've got it. All right. So it's okay. It's been recorded. So we'll put the opening section up again. Well, the good news is that's probably why we never got copyrighted at the start. Talk about a silver lining. So, yeah, for the people who are still here in the chat, thanks for putting up with the silence and lip reading for us. Yeah, if you don't mind just giving a like and a share and just tell people that the audio should be fixed. Now, Peter, if you're still around, just let us know that it is coming through nice and clear. My big concern with America saying that they're going to be jacking up their interest rates, knowing Australia's little USA and whatever they do, we generally follow suit. Do you think the same is going to happen in Australia for Australian mortgages?
I do. Personally, I think that is very likely. They want to keep generally inflation around about the 3% mark. And when it starts to creep up, they tend to hike those interest rates up. So, yes, I think they will. And I think one of the other reasons that probably no one's ever talking about, but because they were so low during COVID, they don't want to go into negative territory on the US dollar, right? I mean, my business partner and I have talked about this a lot, and he kind of alerted me to this. And I thought, yeah, you're right. Because once it affects the integrity of the US dollar, once you do, right? We never go back to, hey, it's never been in the negative territory. And once it has, it's like, well, it could do it again. And that's what they have generally wanted to preserve is the integrity of the US dollar. So with Australia as well following, because we've gone through, you need buffer as you go into a recession type of period. So what they do is they generally want to lower it during a recession. But if you're already at base level at record lows,
you've got nowhere to go.
Except into negative territory, which they don't want to do, because it will affect the integrity of the Australian dollar as well.
So there's another reason that the US going into negative interest rates is really, really bad, because you got to remember, we're sort of like, how would I explain this for people out in the finance? So as one empire comes, it's got to come down a little bit. So effectively, we're at the US empire, same as when the British Empire pre to the Second World War, they were effectively the reserve currency. No, they were the reserve currency. They couldn't afford to cover all the costs of the war. So what happens is, as their currency came down, the US dollar came up, and the US dollar became the reserve currency. So what's happening at the moment, as the US dollar is coming down, because they're just printing insane amounts of money, the Chinese dollar is coming up. And I know there's a lot of animosity between the Chinese and America at the moment. So preventing their currency from going into negative territory would be a great push. If they did go into negative territory, China would, I'm not a financial advisor here, but I could definitely see the Chinese trying to jump on this, saying, well, our currency hasn't done that, so let's switch the reserve currency back over to, well, not back over, but to the Chinese yuan, because they've got a lot of problems of their own at the moment as well.
Yeah, I think that's premature. I don't see that happening. A lot of people, if you'd asked me 10 years ago, do I think China will be the next financial empire, I would have said yes. I'm starting to question that now for various reasons. I just don't. I don't think there's a difference between the Chinese economy and the Chinese political party, right? And I think we've got to see the difference there. And I think in terms of the political side of China, the rest of the world doesn't want to play ball with that. They don't want to go to communism, at the heart of humanity. If you ask the average person on the street, do you want to have a communist nation? You generally get no, we don't, right? You could argue, people will argue how communistic Australia really is at the moment with laws and all that sort of stuff. That's an intellectual debate for another time. But I don't think that people want to go that way. And so I think that's going to tinge the acceptance of the yen to a great extent. I'm not saying they won't, the second biggest economy in the world, will they take over? I'm not so convinced anymore. I just not, but I could be wrong.
It's a very interesting one. To be honest with you, asking that question about do people want to try a communist economy, I don't think many people actually understand what communism is.
Right.
I think people are alarmingly naive when it comes to political systems in Australia, especially in Australia. Yeah. Most people just like, oh, does it give me more money? Other than that, they don't really care. I find the political knowledge within Australia is very, very dismal, very, very low.
Well, if you look at the history of communism, it's always led to poverty for the people, right? I'm very pragmatic when it comes to this sort of stuff. You can have theory and you can intellectualize it all you want in the hallways and classrooms of university. When it comes out onto the main street and when you're dealing with it there, it's a whole different ballgame. And so yeah, I just, you look at the practicality. Did it work for Russia? No. Why is Russia not communistic in name anymore?
Yep.
There's a
Because
reason
it
for
doesn't
that.
work.
Right.
And now they're one of the strongest economies in the world, even with all the sanctions that are on them. So
That's right.
it's, yeah. Now, flow on effect from Powell's speech. Obviously, we saw the impact on the markets.
Yep.
What's likely to happen in the next week or so? Like, get your crystal ball out, Derek. Show us what you know.
Well, I always have an attitude as a trader, anything can happen. So once you
Mhm.
put a trade on as a trader, the mindset goes, anything could happen now. Because what you think may happen, the reverse can. And it's a weird thing. The market is one of those things.
And I hate to say it on Friday. That's what I thought would happen. And no, it did not happen.
So politics is a thing that influences the markets, economy, and interest rates. So we're seeing the big effect of interest rates right now. We're seeing, I think, economists know it, that the political side of America is sick right now and is probably out to destroy the United States. That's its intent in many ways, which may sound outlandish, but I mean, there's a very easy thing to recover and stop this inflation in the United States. We were listening to a report on the show, and it's this, and it reiterates, allow them to produce oil. Stop killing the fossil fuel industry.
Yep.
And then prices of oil will come down. It'll be cost less to transport goods and foods around the country and that sort of stuff. Easy fix. But they're out to they've determined to destroy the fossil fuel industry. Well, America's got an immediate market already to sell oil to. That's Germany and the UK, who have sanctions on Russia right now.
It's really funny you said that, because I was watching the news on Thursday or Friday, and they were saying that for the first time they might have to have rolling blackouts in the UK as they're coming into winter.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking,
this is insane.
We're meant to be first world countries.
Yeah.
Like French president Macron, he's just turned around and said the age of indulgence is over. And it's like, we're first world countries. Like, having just electricity isn't indulgence. Going out and spending, $150 a night on alcohol and going out for dinner, that's indulgence. So simple going through recessions and saving a bit of money, but having a country not able to supply power, now that is not indulgence. That's extremely poor management.
If you want to run your factories, you've got to have electricity. Pardon me. And we saw the weakness of that when China, about a year ago, was having rolling electrical situations for their factories in that. And they were having supply chain issues because they didn't have enough electrical power to run their factories, and they were moving it. You
know what's really funny about that? At the same time, they stopped a ship from Australia with Australian coal in it that had 900,000 tons of Australian coal that they were going to use for the power plants.
Right.
That was during the trade wars, and they said, no, we're not unloading it. So it's like, okay, we'll just sit off the coast, and next thing you know, China's got rolling blackouts. So that just shows how important the coal industry to Australia is. And again, going back to what you were saying before about America just reproducing the oil and powering their own power stations, the fuel, and doing all that themselves. If they start producing, start manufacturing again, they're going to be in a lot better position. And taking that lesson from America, what's happening, and bringing it across to Australia, I think it's really, really important that Australia follows suit. Before we start getting these crazy interest rates hikes and everything, we need to start manufacturing again in Australia, especially things like oil, gas, coal, all the resources to produce power needs to be done in-house.
I think also, I mean, smart business owners are going to start seeing, or entrepreneurs in this country will hopefully see, that there is a push for sovereignty within Australia, or be self-sufficient, as we call it, and produce your own stuff. And obviously, we've got to look at China. The question mark has come, how close are we going to be able to rely? If China has economic concerns, will they always be our buyer? We're too heavily weighted to one nation, relied on that for economic prosperity. So obviously we'd expect the politicians doing the trade agreements with other nations, which our previous Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, attempted to do and start that ball rolling. But you've got to start looking at where are the opportunities. And I think there is going to come a theme in the next 5 years or so of being more self-sufficient as a nation.
I find it, as much as I hate giving Scott Morrison compliments, about the only good thing he did was actually that free trade agreements with India, because it has opened up the Indian market to us. If China does go down, we do have a backup. But I'd love to see more, and I'll be honest with you, transparency. My wife is Vietnamese. I'd love to see more open trade with Vietnam, Malaysia, Singapore. We need to really start focusing on our direct neighbors. Indonesia is another one that's a huge market. Just have a look at the population as well. So we need to start looking at these markets. We need to stop I hate to say this, but free trade agreements are definitely not free trade agreements. We need to get rid of them and just allow business to be businesses. Let them go make the deals and get it done. I think government needs to get the hell out of it and just let people do what they need to do.
Well, with respect to politicians, I don't think a lot of them have worked at running their own business. I mean, some have, yes. How many have been employees all their life? It's the same with academics in a university. A lot of them stay in the world of academia, and they, it's great in theory, some of the stuff they come up with, but it's not street smart. It's not. Yeah. It doesn't work in the practical sense of how the market operates.
Okay.
So yeah, I think there's got to be this balance between, hey, are you qualified to do this? If you haven't run a business before, you really don't know how business works. Just if you've been an employee all your life, you don't know.
And we've got so many politicians that go from school to university doing political degrees, going from university straight as a staffer or a helper into a political party, and then from there into members of parliament.
Okay.
And they've literally got no real life experience, no business experience. All they've got is this is how things work in politics, and that's it. They have no idea. And unfortunately, a lot of these politicians don't actually get out into the community, actually talk to these people, find out what's going on. One of the biggest things, especially with farmers at the moment, is the amount of green tape that they've got to get through to actually do anything. And then you're having a look at all the employment issues now as well. So what I'd love to do, we're about to go to a song, because I get told off apparently if we don't go into enough songs. So let's get a song going. I've never actually used this computer, so this could be interesting. And we'll be back after that. So you're with Travis Carter, Edge Radio, and we got
Derek Whittaker with The Greater Wealth.
And there's a play button here somewhere. And it's right there. No, they can't get this. It's not plugged in. All right, so let's. It sounded good. I like having the third person. I hate saying. Sound. Oops. Yeah, I am. I forgot to switch over to Stein.
That's how it goes. Cause part of me knows what you're thinking. Don't say words you're gonna regret. Don't let the fire rush to your head. I've heard the accusation before, and I ain't gonna take any more. Believe me, the sun in your eyes made some of the lies worth believing. I am the eye in the sky, looking at you. I can read your mind. I am the maker of rules, dealing with fools. I can cheat you blind. And I don't need to see anyone
It's still going through.
to know that I can read your mind.
I don't know. Sorry, Aaron's just sent a message. This is awesome.
I can read your mind. I can read your mind.
All right, so Derek, we asked him. I don't think I said anything that was usual. It's pretty rare for me. So I'm guessing that. Hey, Aaron, send us a message.
So find another fool like before. Cause I ain't gonna live anymore. Believing some of the
Aaron.
I am the eye in the sky.
And Aaron, send us a message.
Looking at you, I can read your mind. I am the maker of rules, dealing with fools. I can cheat you blind, and I don't need to see anymore to know that I can read your mind. I can read your mind. I can read your mind.
but when people comment on my page, for some reason, messages to my personal page don't come up on Storeful. But the cool thing is, 40 seconds, so it's just uncut out. I don't think we've been nailed by copyright. Oh no, we just did. Yeah, just everyone just got kicked off. I don't know how. Oh, that's all right. Because it's still live on Edge Radio. Seconds. I know why my mic was still on. All of that went to air because
Turn it off.
I turned off the headphones.
There you go.
Travis Carter, Edge Radio, Australia.
That's why we're talking through the song the whole time.
Oh, you won't. We turned yours off.
Okay.
Mine was.
There you go.
So yeah, that's really, really professional of me. That's just absolutely awesome. We still got copyrighted. I wonder how many I got.
At least
now.
you're consistent, Travis.
I know, like,
yeah.
I think last week it was 274 copyright strikes.
There you go.
Yeah, in one show.
There you go.
I love Facebook. We've even this time was for the people watching on social medias or were watching on social media. We've even got our APRA license hanging right there. Scrolling across the screen, and in the comments and everything, we've got our APRA license. So I don't know what else we have to do to get social media platforms to turn around and go, well, wow, these guys are actually licensed. They're allowed to play the music. Let them go. But yeah, no. Even if you throw a dispute up and saying, hey, we're licensed, here's that license number. Facebook at the moment is going, oh, due to technical issues, try again later. And that's been happening for about 6 months now.
Tough broadcast world out there, Travis.
Oh, but it's stupid. It is absolutely retarded. Anyway, so let's keep going.
The best way for people to listen is go to the website.
Yeah, edgeradioaustralia.com. And to get more financial education, come to the live event on the 22nd.
There you go.
It will be on the I've made the page.
Good.
I just haven't made it good looking yet.
Mate, do what you can. Do what you got to do.
It's a bit hard with like two rough nuts like us. And then you got Aaron dressing as a woman on it as well.
Oh dear.
So for people who don't know, there's we got people coming back. So maybe they actually finally accepted our license. We'll see. So we've been talking POW, the Federal Reserve,
Yes.
the US. We've been talking about the possible flow-on effects to Australia. Just noticed that my sock came down, so you're seeing my hairy legs. That's for the people online. We're talking about the possible flow-on effects in Australia. We are to expect our interest rates to go up. But again, financial markets change all the time. So what happened today may not be so tomorrow. Now, the other thing that I've talked to a couple of other mates that are dealing in the finance side of things, taking into account the difference between the 2008 global financial crisis and what's happening now, like the precursors.
Yep.
So the US property market, the value of houses in 12 months prior to the crash, I think there was about 6 or 7 states that had greater than 10% growth in the price of the housing. So a lot of those houses were actually owned by mum and dads. So obviously you got things like Miami, California, places like that. What's happening now, instead of being isolated into like 6 or 7 states where the prices are going massively high and everything else plateauing out, because most of the houses then were mum and dad's homes, like the family home. What's happening now, 26 states, I think it was, have more than 10% growth in the 12 months leading up to now. But now that the interest rates are going up, a lot of those houses are actually starting to plummet in value. So not only is the interest rates going up, there's also the value of houses are now going down.
Yep.
But instead of being isolated into a few areas, it's actually across the board in the United States. One of the positives that did come from that back in 2008, about 200% of your family value, like income, was going to the mortgage. So, for example, if you had $100,000 worth of income, your house mortgage was roughly $200,000, so double. That's actually lower now. It's about 150%, but the interest rates are estimated to go even higher than what it did last time. And because the value of the houses, so the total debt is way, way higher this time. So even though there's less debt on your house, people in general have more debt now than prior to 2008. So is that a scary trend? Is that something that sets people like yourself on edge, thinking, "Oh, this could be actually worse," or is that something that just you think has absolutely nothing to do with it?
Well, the way our mindset kind of goes is, where's the opportunity?
Mm.
Right, there's opportunity in every situation. So that's kind of the first thing that clicks into our brain. Okay, is there an opportunity to? I know other investors are cashing up and going, right, I'm going to get ready to buy properties when they hit bottom prices and this sort of stuff. So that's kind of where the mindset goes in that respect. That doesn't help people already mortgage to the hilt and try to find, how do I work through this and all that sort of stuff. One of the trends that I have heard about, particularly when there's a downturn in the markets, what the banks typically do is they target the developers and they start recoursing all the loans that they've lent and saying, okay, we want that money to come in. We want to lower the debt loan variable ratio, as they call it, to those works that you're doing, because they could see this kind of problem with it, what the asset may not be worth what they're doing, and they're concerned about prices blowing out, and then you can't sell it, and you've just got a real mess. And the banks want to get paid, right? They would prefer not to possess people's properties. It's a headache for them to have to go through all of that and be real estate agents on top of that. They just prefer to collect interest.
Yep.
And so, yeah, you've got to understand too that the US property market is very, very different from the Australian market, and the way loans work in the United States are a little bit different compared to what we do here as well. So you've got to keep that in mind, that just because you're hearing economic data coming out of the United States, it won't necessarily be the same situation here in Australia.
Okay, so that's good advice, especially for mums and dads. But I think the moral of the whole story for all of this is don't overextend. Like, especially when it comes to debt, especially to the banks or other people that can take your assets. Don't overextend yourself.
I think it's dangerous. I was in a situation recently. I think it's dangerous when people start defining their lives to how many toys they owned, right? The boats, the bigger house.
Were they minors?
No.
Okay.
No. It comes to a point where you go, this is my boat and this is my house, and we've upgraded to this and that sort of stuff. And it's the keeping up with the Joneses. It's trying to impress people who really don't care about you anyway. Why go to the extent of doing it? I mean, let's be real.
That's a savage way to look at it, but I get what you're saying.
They don't care.
Yep.
Really? Does anyone really care what car you drive?
It's funny because are you in the Peugeot or the
I'm in the
Getz?
Peugeot today.
Oh, you're in the fancy car. So just so everyone knows, Derek normally drives a Getz.
I do.
It's an awesome car, though. It's amazing.
To me, more people care about it than I do. I really don't care what car I drive. To me, what does a car do? It gets you from A to B, right? And the rest is ego in terms of how well it gets you. Now, there's a caveat to that. If I have to go off road, then I'm going to need a vehicle that can do that, right? I'm going to need a four-wheel drive.
Peugeot.
And it's not the Getz either, right?
And it's not my car. Well, I shouldn't say my car. It's not the wife's car.
Yeah.
I had no choice in the. I normally buy all our cars, and this time Luan's like, I want a nice car.
I mean, I like sports cars, right?
Mine's not a sports car.
But the problem is there's so many cameras on the radars on the road these days. The only place you're going to be able to really open it up is on the racetrack. I mean, and how often are you going to do that? I'm being very pragmatic about these things. So
we were talking. You after your show, we do a political show in the afternoon. Last week we had Paul Miles, councillor. He's running for the mayor position for the city of Wanneroo. And he was talking about the raceway up here. And even just on the raceway, the amount of red tape they have to go through just to open up a car. Even if you do go to the racetrack, even there you can't give it full throttle unless like club events and all that sort of stuff as well. So, it's just shocking. So
my point is, getting back to my point, we can do this, is do you need all those toys? You'd be amazed. What you really need and what you think you need are sometimes two very different stories, right? What do you need? You need a roof over your head,
food.
You need food, water, and clothing, right? And how much clothing do you need? And I'm not trying to say, hey, you've got to live like on your bare bones and all this sort of stuff. But I think sometimes we have to ask, if I buy this, what are the economic consequences to my financial situation if I do? If I go into debt over it, how long am I going to be paying it off?
I always ask myself, do I need this?
Yeah.
Do I want it or do I need it?
One of the tests that I do in the shopping mall is this. So if I see something I like, rather than do an impulse buy, I might go, okay, I'm going to walk away and look at other stuff in the shopping mall. And if I find in half an hour I'm still thinking about that thing, that sometimes gives me an indication you actually do really like it. If I've forgotten about it, I go, right, don't even bother.
Didn't need it.
Didn't need it, didn't
So-
want it. It was just an impulse thing.
I think that is probably one of the hardest lessons for people to learn, because it's not that people are greedy. They want things. They love to hoard things. Go have a look at people's sheds. Like you were saying last
Yeah.
week, get rid of all the crap in your shed. If you haven't used it for 12 months, get rid of it.
Yeah.
Just have a look at all that crap, and people want it's mine. It's my toy. I think they call it the toddler syndrome. If you see someone else with something, you want what they have. And Australians are shocking for it. Like just the keeping up with Jones, as you were saying, like, oh, this person's got a jet ski, so I want a jet ski. This person's got a nice four-wheel drive, so I want a four-wheel drive. It will never see the dirt, but I want a four-wheel drive I call it the wank factor. But shocking. So with that one, talking of toys,
Mhm.
and especially the mining side of things, you can't buy toys without a job.
Yep.
Normally.
Yep.
This is my attempt at a segue.
Segway, or running a business has some sort of income thing. Yep.
So the thing is, the other thing I've noticed lately is a lot of farmers are coming off the farmland. A lot of businesses are closing down, and a lot of them are telling us that a lot of it is because they just can't find workers.
Right.
So where are the workers? What's going on? Why are all these businesses closing down? Because they're claiming that there's no workers out there.
Well, there's a couple of problems. The main one is politics, right? We've basically gone through a period where we've had mandates in terms of a vaccination, whether someone's vaccinated or not vaccinated. And how many, we are not seeing the stats come through as to how much of that affected the workforce, because I think there's been an impression they want to make it look like that the majority were vaccinated. And I would say in the circles that I look at and mix with and see, that isn't the reality that's actually presenting. There are a lot of people, and there's two parts to this. So people go, oh, well, the mandate's been lifted. Not in every sector.
Definitely not.
And
Medical's still there.
secondly, there is a lot of internal policies going with companies right now who are hanging on to that discrimination. I'm going to call it what it is, discrimination, and abiding by this principle. And this is the problem. So what's happened is, even though it's been lifted politically in many sectors, there's some internal governance going on, and those who are unvaccinated find difficulty breaking through that, which is ridiculous, because these people have so much experience, so much expertise, and are so wanting to work. So that's one of the problems. The second problem is we've closed our borders, so we're not getting immigration coming over. And you look at that, Australia is not the attraction it once was to work in right now. There are other countries that are presenting themselves as far more attractive to attract international migrants to work in. So there's a couple of problems there.
My on your first point about the companies blocking people from coming back, so internal politics, their choice not to allow people back.
Yep.
I can actually confirm that with a couple of the mining companies. I've been sent emails, internal emails, where they're saying even though the mandates are lifted, they are still refusing to allow people to apply for jobs if they haven't been triple and quad vaxxed and all that sort of stuff. So a lot of the Western Australian mining companies are very similar to that. Now, going on to the immigration side of things, I want to throw another one in there. I think the government, not only is it on they're blocking people coming into Australia to work, but it's also things like there used to be a program called the WOOFs. They spelt it weirdly, but work for food and board. So they used to have people, and I know a lot of people in Korea used to love doing this, going out to Aussie farms and working, just doing manual labor things like helping fix fences, moving cattle and sheep around, stuff like that. And they would work 2 or 3 days a week. And then the rest of the time they could go travel the Midwest or wherever they were. So it was really great sources. It gave, especially students, they've just finished the university, whatever, they want to have a bit of a break for 6 months. We'll come to Australia, work for 6 months, like free food, free accommodation, then do a little side hustle on the side, whatever. And you can travel all through the regional areas of Australia. It was a great way to bring, especially Southeast Asians, Chinese, Japanese people, a lot of them really, really loved doing that sort of stuff. They all came to Australia, and the farmers got free labor. And it really boosted the local economies because you had that big influx of tourists. And it didn't actually affect things like unemployment rates because they were tourists. They didn't actually count. So the other thing I want to talk to you about on the unemployment rate and why business is struggling so much is actually the participation rate in Australia, especially after the vaccine. So many people are figuring out, you know what, I don't need to work. Why go to work for a job which I struggle out when I can just sit at home, play with the kids, watch TV? I don't need to work anymore with the amount of government handouts.
Yeah.
So how much of an impact do you think the actual participation rate is actually having on businesses over the unemployment rate?
Oh, big time. I mean, by nature, if you could stay at home and get paid to do it all the time, would you do it? Was that the
Oh,
choice?
of course.
Absolutely, right?
I'm lazy as hell.
We have a nature to be lazy. It's like greyhounds. Greyhounds all they do is they sleep all day, and then when they go to the racetrack, they run their race, and then they sleep all day, and that sort of stuff. So we have kind of that psychology that everybody will go, where is the easy money, and do
In
that.
Australia, it's on the dole. Let's be honest, it's on the dole. You get paid so much money. And to make it even easier, just have a couple of kids. Makes it even easier.
Yeah, look, I think if we stop punishing people for doing well in a country, which is essentially what our taxation system does, right? If you exceed $150,000, and we're going to pretty much take with Medicare levy all that 48% of your income away. Beyond that, I mean, really, why are we punishing? And I know I've beat the drum on this in previous episodes, but we've got to get past that and encourage people to incentivize. Because if you're doing well, that means I'm doing well.
The tall poppy syndrome. Someone's doing good, so we got to cut them down.
Yeah. It's actually the opposite. If there are 20 of us doing really, really well, that affects in a community. It spreads. Everybody does well. Everybody prospers. There's enough wealth for everyone, and to dabble in it all the time from a governance perspective is actually damaging it. You make it harder and harder. And this is the problem I've seen for years, is that entrepreneurs go, right, too hard to do in Australia, too much taxation, too much red tape. I'm going to take it. I'm going to go elsewhere. It's a lot easier to do business elsewhere. I've seen it time and time again. So we lose our best innovators, our best entrepreneurs, because we punish them for doing well. It's really simple.
The other thing as well, just on the tax rate, it's not 48%, because every time you go buy something like that you consume, there's GST, your stamp duty, your registration on your vehicles, your driver's license, absolutely everything is tax. Let's say you've put some fuel on the car, you're paying the fuel excise tax on that as well. So I've read a report, this is a couple of years old now, they were saying that the real tax rate in Australia is something like 93%.
Yeah.
It's absolutely insane. And I'm like, how's anyone supposed to get ahead? How are they supposed to succeed when the government steals everything? And let's be honest, one of the biggest issues a lot of people talk about when they talk about politics is government waste. Right. Government cannot be trusted to spend our money properly. I think it was Terry Stokes that said it in the inquiry, where once he can trust the government to spend his money properly, I'll start paying more tax. But until then, I'll pay as little as I can. So I can't understand how anyone would ever want to pay more tax. And so just going on that basis, why would you work when the moment you get a job, you're giving away at least 30% all the way up to, like you said, 48%?
Yeah, I think it's incentive. I think that's the thing. We teach children, hey, if you do well, you'll be rewarded. If you do wrong, you'll be punished, right? Why is it then that if somebody does well, they're punished? I mean, that's what we've got to address as a culture. I think, and I heard someone say this once, at Dave Hodgson, I thought it was very beautifully said, is that one of the problems we have in this country is that politicians only think in 3-year lots. They want to win the next election. So we're not thinking 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, right? We're only thinking about the next election from a governance perspective. And I think we've got to address that. And when you've got a 2-party system, right, with the preferentials going to one particular party, it's very hard to overturn that kind of mindset or infiltrate that kind of mindset unless you belong to that political party and then you're playing the party game. And I think if we can start thinking long term, where do we as a nation, we're positioned in Australia, one of the biggest islands of the world, let's face it, where do we want to be going in 10, 20 years' time? And start planning that accordingly.
Now,
we've got so much potential.
I'm going to throw a spanner into your works there when you just said about the 2 major parties. There was a bill passed in, I think it was 2018, 2019. It was actually by one of the minor parties, Pauline Hanson's One Nation, actually said it's okay to be white in Parliament. Now, Labor voted against it because it's One Nation. The Liberal Party voted with it. And then later they got ridiculed for it in the media. Then they turned around and said, oh no, the party whip told the members of Parliament to vote the wrong way. So what happens is, even if you do join one of the major parties and you're trying to change it from the inside out, the power brokers still have the authority to turn around and say, no, you will vote this way or you're out. And that's what happened to Andrea Tokaji when she lost her endorsement during I think it was the 2021 state election, because she wrote an article questioning the origins of COVID. because it didn't go with what the party wanted to say at the moment. They disendorsed her without giving her a chance to respond to it. So you're 100% right. With the two-party preferred system here, it's not going to change. Politicians do think in 3-year lots. And a prime example of that is, okay, Mandurah in WA. For the people over east, it's a suburb about an hour south of Perth. It was the fastest growing city in, I think, all of the world, actually. I think San Francisco was beating it. Mandurah was second, Rockingham was third or something. Like this is when WA was going through the population boom. So they built a train station down there to connect Mandurah to Perth.
Yep.
They built a single, like just a standard car park. So instead of knowing that the population was growing as fast as it was, by the time they finished the construction, at 6 a.m. in the morning, the car park was already full. You could not get a parking space. So half the people were actually driving to Perth anyway, just because they couldn't park to catch the train. So again, they only said, right, our budget is this much. This is all we're using. Instead of increasing the budget and going like multiple stories and planning for 15 years, they goes, right, 3 years. It took 2 years to build the train station. By the time they actually had it finished with all the delays, it was already too small for the population requirements. Yeah. So no, you're absolutely 100% right on that one. And I find it absolutely disgusting. So what we're going to do now, we're going to go jump to another song because I'm trying to keep this to 15 minutes and I'm failing miserably. And then when we come back, we'll wrap it up for the day. So we're on Edge Radio Australia with Travis Carter with Derek the Dollar Dazzler. You never don't live that down.
I've been labelled by the media.
I don't know if you count me as me. That's a shocker. Where's the play button? There it is. All right. Anyway, we're going into a song and we'll be back after this.
Through on a wooden cross, blackbird in the barn. 400 empty acres that used to be my farm. Grew up like my daddy did, my grandpa cleared this land. When I was 5, I walked the fence while grandpa held my hand. Rain on the scarecrow, blood on the plow. This land fed a nation, this land made me proud. And son, I'm just sorry there's no legacy for you now. Rain on the scarecrow, blood on the plow. Rain on the scarecrow, blood on the plow. Crops grew last summer, weren't enough to pay the loan. Couldn't buy the seed to plant this spring, and farmers' bank foreclosed. Called my old friend Shipman up to auction off the land. He said, John, it's just my job, and I hope you understand. They calling it your job, oh horse, sure don't make it right. If you want me to, I'll say a prayer for your soul tonight. Grandma's on the front porch with a Bible in her hand. Sometimes I hear her singing, take me to the promised land. You take away man's dignity, I can't work his fields and cows. But blood on the scarecrow, blood on the plow. Blood on the scarecrow, blood on the plow. It's 97 crosses planted in the courthouse yard. 97 families who lost 97 farms. I think about my grandpa, my neighbors, and my name. Some nights I feel like dying, like I scarecrow in the rain. Rain on the scarecrow, blood on the plow. This land fed a nation, hey, this land made me proud. And son, I'm just sorry, there's just memories for you now. Rain on the scarecrow, blood on the plow. Rain on the scarecrow, blood on the plow. Rain on the scarecrow, blood on the plow. This land fed a nation, this land made me so proud. Son, I'm just sorry, this memories for you now. Rain on the scarecrow, blood on the plow. Rain on the scarecrow, blood on the cloud.
All right, Travis Carter, Edge Radio Australia. We've got Derek, the Dollar Dazzler. I haven't got my headphones on, so I can't hear myself. All right, there we go. There we go. Now, just having a good old look at the Stalk book, and we have proudly been banned or muted or whatever 249 locations. Now, they list a whole heap of countries on it. And I just did a quick Google search. Apparently, there's only 195 countries in the world.
You sound like you're bragging here.
Mate,
you're bragging.
Mate, oh.
You're trying to break your records here and be banned in more places there are in the world. That's what you're doing.
My question is, how do you get banned in more countries than there actually are countries?
You find a way, Travis. You find a way.
Well, obviously I did. So like, and for the people who are watching, like, hang on, where is it? Just there. So across the bottom of the screen, we actually have our APRA license. So we are fully licensed. And then if you look in the comment section or the show detail section, it's also listed the APRA license in there as well. So I really don't know what else we can do. But the good news is it actually accepted the dispute. So one thing, considering how many stations we've been banned out and how often we get bans and shadow bans, and Aaron Malloy is currently, you don't love this one, 30-day ban for sharing a Facebook post.
Uh-oh.
A post from Facebook.
Yeah.
So explain that one for me. I don't get it. Anyway, so do you think knowledge is power? Let's be honest. The more knowledge you have, the more you can protect yourself. You know what to do when a crisis comes up. Knowledge is flat out power.
Well, yes, unless it's not. There's a lot of people who have a lot of knowledge, but they don't put it into action.
Willingness to use the knowledge you know is power. Well, maybe not.
Sometimes
Anyway.
you just got to take action and do things.
Yeah.
There's one thing I've discovered in business. Sometimes I used to be very analytical. I mean, I have to in the role that I do with markets and all this sort of stuff. The stuff that we talk about.
Considering you're dealing with other people's money.
Yeah, you have to be analytical. The problem with being analytical is sometimes you can get into analysis paralysis and not do anything. And I've learned in business, sometimes just make a decision. And don't worry if it's the right decision or wrong decision. Just make a decision, because not making a decision is worse than having made the wrong decision in some situations. Not all situations. Put a caveat. There is wisdom, and that's the next level. And you know, if you're going to go into debt, you've really got to question why you're going into debt, right? If you're going to get a loan from the bank or wherever, you got to question why you're doing it. That's something not just to do. Just think through that one. You know, what are the repercussions if this all goes wrong? It's knowing the levels of danger.
Yep.
I think that's.
And I think you've hit the nail on the head on something that is actually making a decision rather than sitting there and going, oh, what's going to happen, is especially with your personal finance. Like, let's say something comes up in the family. Let's say yourself or your partner loses their job, and you got to make a decision, right? Are we going to keep going down the path that we're going? Are we going to keep spending what we're doing, or are we going to start making cutbacks? Where are we going to make the cutbacks? So sitting there going, oh, and panicking like a deer in the headlights is potentially way, way worse than actually going, right, no, we need to take action now. This is the action we're going to take. But just having that decision to actually take the action in the first place, I think people really, really struggle with that.
A lot of kids used to go to Boy Scouts. I missed out on that. But a lot of kids went to Boy Scouts or Girls Brigade, whatever it was, and they taught you about being prepared. Boy Scout motto, be prepared, right? I've really taken that heart this year as well in terms of my finances and looking at that and going, how prepared are we for the worst to occur?
I really want to make a really bad sexist joke there because Derek, you're a sexist. It's not Boy Scouts, it's Scouts.
Okay.
Sorry, I had to get my woke on. It was terrible, isn't it? No, seriously, they banned Boy Scouts in Australia because they were sexist against girls.
Okay, right. Well, whatever. So
yeah, exactly. Whatever. Like,
you get my point. They're going to change the world. Is it okay? Wow.
But boys don't know how to tie knots anymore. Like, if you want to kidnap someone, how you don't tie them up?
Okay, this is all new data for me. I'm really not got my finger on the pulse here in terms of what's going on in that world. But getting back to my point, how prepared are you? How well prepared are you?
I don't know how to tie people up, so no.
You're not going to let it go.
So no, but you're right. How prepared are you? No, I don't think many people actually have a plan B or a plan C. If shit hits the fan, they don't know how to deal with it.
It's a kind of case where, you know, you get into an aeroplane what you use to get into an airplane,
Not allowed to.
and
anymore.
they give you the 5-minute spiel on what happens in an emergency situation, where the exits are located, how you'll be instructed, life jackets if you're going over water, air masks falling from the oxygen mask falling from the ceiling, etc., etc. It's all in the very unlikely case of a emergency, as they put it, because air flight is actually one of the most safest methods of transport, right? So it's kind of like that in finances. I think what COVID has done is woken a lot of people up and said, hey, things aren't as safe as you think they are. If the worst were to happen, how would you cope and survive? Hoping that you'll never have to use this situation, like the first aid kit is a great investment, which you hope you never use. Yeah.
I think a lot of people's plan B is the government, and that is terrible. Like, it is the worst possible plan B, because if everyone goes, oh, the government will look after us, where's the money coming from? How are they going to protect themselves? And the problem is, especially as a single income family, Luan's just lost a job out of the education department. We don't have that option. So having the ability to think outside the box, and having that knowledge to know where there's demand in the market to be able to create a business and get income coming in from that has really saved our family. So a lot of people's plan B is the government, and that's probably one of the most stupid things you can possibly think of doing. So you need to be prepared. You need to do a financial scout thing to get you started and make that decision. And that's a fantastic segue into the 22nd of September, where we're doing our live event.
Yeah, it is.
Did you like that one?
I love that. You're smooth, man. You're smooth.
No, rough as guts.
How to live your life purpose and understand how to fund it like the wealthy do. That's what we're going to be looking at. And I'm really, really excited to present that. So, yeah, if you're going to get the details, Travis, you're going to be posting this very soon, I hope. Yeah,
it'll be on the Edge Radio, Facebook, YouTube, webinars, on the little scrolly thing coming across the bottom of the screen. They'll be in there.
Cool.
And most video descriptions, chats,
next week we're going to see that.
Emails. Yes.
Yeah, excellent.
Yes.
That's excellent. Next week will be September. Where's the year going, man? It's like, whoa, today's the 29th.
That's a little bit scary. It's like last year, I think I was 23. Now I'm 39 next Wednesday. I'm 39. It's like, I love it when you get out of the shower and you dry yourself, you see yourself in the mirror and you go, oh no, that's the grey hair in the beard. And it's like, oh shit, I'm old. So yeah. Anyway, the joys of getting old. Now, Derek, we have 7 minutes left. What do you want to round it out with?
I think people should stop and go, right, let's have a look at this. Is my job safe? Now, I don't want to put fear in people's minds. That's not the reason I'm asking that. But I think I have seen global financial crisis situations where I was in the corporate world, and I used to hear it from the corporate bosses at that time. You think a job is safe. It's not. It's not as safe as you think it is. Basically, what happens is they look at the best performers in a business, and they scrap the rest. They go, right, which services are essential to keeping its business going? Which ones are superfluous? We'll address those roles first. Usually the contractors go, and the superfluous roles go, and they keep the best workers. And employees leave, they don't re-employ those positions. That's generally what happens, in a business, that sort of stuff. So I think you've got to look at, what can I bring? First of all, if you're happy in your job, fantastic. That's really, really good plus, because a lot of people are miserable. Most people are miserable in their work, right?
I heard 80% are miserable.
Yeah, I was speaking to someone from the Australian Institute of Management at a business breakfast I went to a couple of weeks ago. I was saying, hey, I saw your stats back in 2016 on that. He says, oh yeah, we've got new figures coming out, so that's really interesting. But I think if you're not happy with your job, and you go, well, what is my life purpose? What is it that I'm really supposed to be contributing to the world? Because if you're doing that, then that's a powerful position to be in, because you're enjoying what you do. You don't mind putting in longer hours because you love what you do, right?
And it's not a job then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you don't like what you do, you're not going to put the long hours into it. You just don't want to. You'd rather watch something else on telly or something. So
cat videos. They're awesome.
Exactly. So it's coming to the point where you're going, all right, how safe is my position, in the sense of, am I doing what I'm really supposed to be doing in life? If it's not, then that's a starting point.
You need to get out.
If you are doing something you absolutely love, but it's not paying you or rewarding you what you wanted or something like that, then you've got to reassess, well, which direction do I want to go? What's the lifestyle I want in 10 years' time? And realistically, if somebody's going to go into business, it's a 10-year commitment. It really is, to really make it successful.
It's really funny you said that. I was watching a video on how to be successful on YouTube as a streamer, producer, and all that sort of stuff.
Mhm.
And the amount of videos you got to put out, and most of them reckon it's between a 5 to 10 year job to get anywhere near 10,000 subscribers.
Right.
So it's a long term thing. Doesn't matter whether you're making videos on YouTube or actually starting an actual like fish and chip shop or whatever. It's a long process.
So the key word there is consistency,
Mhm.
right? It's showing up every day, doing what you're doing, and believing that. I mean, there were so many times I was tempted to quit in my business. If I had, I wouldn't be sitting behind this microphone today doing what I'm doing, right? There was so many times. I lay in bed many times wondering in the middle of the night, have I made the right decision? How is this affecting my wife? How is this affecting my children, etc.? And I knew that, with the pain that we were going through, financial pain, all that sort of stuff, I thought one day this is going to help a lot of people. And that was one thing that got me through that pain, is this experience. My mother once said to me, your pain is never wasted. And I remembered that, and I thought, right, someone's going to benefit from what I'm going through today. And so when people come to me with their situations, and some people tell me what's going on in their financial world, and they're really stressed out about it and worried about it. Sometimes I just smile quietly to myself and go, is that it? Is that all you got? And that's no disrespect to them. That's that's the level they're at. But I'm looking and going, man, there's a lot of pain. And there's guys who've had worse pain than I have had in different realms. And they'd probably look at one guy and go, Whittaker, you think you've gone through pain? You haven't gone through this. So we're all on a different stages and that sort of stuff. But the benefits, playing the long-term game, getting past the thinking the 3-year cycle thing, you can see if you're thinking 10 years down the road, that's when you start reaping the benefits. That's a really, really exciting position to be in. But it's also having the honesty to go, you know what, this isn't working. We have to modify, we have to pivot, we have to change. One of the cool changes that we saw in COVID was how many places that produced alcohol pivoted to producing hand sanitizers in a very short period of time.
Actually,
I thought that was a very clever pivot these businesses did.
The one was still working out the education department. They couldn't get the hand sanitizer, like when there was that massive shortage. Yeah. They're like, hang on, we're a lab. Like, this is a high school. So they're like, fuck it, we'll just make our own. Yeah. And so they went, right, what do we need? And they worked out, all right, we can't get this, we can't get that, we can't get that. Okay, we can get this. And I remember taking Luan down to this it's like a hippie place where they do all the weird oils that they burn and they make it smell good, and like they do massages. And to be honest, I thought it was a whorehouse, like a rub and tug sort of thing. I walked in because there's all these like smells coming out. And it's like, this is a bit sus. Anyway, so we got all these weird tubs of gels, and you put it all together, you mix it, you boil it, simmer it down. Next thing you know, you got hand sanitizer. Yeah. I'm like, wow, you went to a rub and tug joint to get hand sanitizer. I thought that was hilarious. So I never said that because she's a little bit innocent, but no, it was it was quite an interesting experience. And that was the education department, because even the education department at the time could not get hand sanitizer. And that's how bad things got. So no, it's kind of funny because I think all our copyright things got lifted. So we've got people coming back into the stream just as we're about to pack up. So just for the people that just come back in, 249 countries booted us apparently. So yeah, awesome. So
it's good to be popular.
Derek, on the note of ending up with sanitizers and adult entertainment, we're going to wrap this one up. I can just see Aaron going, oh God, you had to pull it in.
Travis,
you've been so good all day, and now
you had to go there, Travis.
Of course, this is me. Like,
okay.
What else? hey, at least I'm not. Who's our premier? Albanese. He actually got caught going to a real one.
That's our prime minister.
Prime minister. Yeah, he got caught going to a real rub and tug place. So anyway, PM behaving badly.
Can we go elsewhere, please?
I'm sure he knows other places to go to. But anyway, so this is Travis Carter and Derek the Dollar Dazzler. You really don't get rid of that, are you?
Thanks, mate. Really appreciate it. Yeah, thanks.
Would you like some steak knives with that? No, sorry. So yeah, Derek from Blue Sky Factory, you've been absolutely awesome. So remember, if you do want to do Derek's high intensive financial courses to really break free, BLU skyfactory.com.au.
It's beautiful, man.
I know.
Yep.
And if you want to listen live without all the copyright strikes on for Edge Radio, 24 hours a day, we have music playing non-stop with very, very limited ads. EdgeRadioAustralia.com. We will also be having an app that you can just press on your phone when you jump into your car, so you can listen to it while you drive as well.
Too easy.
That's coming.
Very good.
Slowly. Once we can browbeat our IT team to actually put it together and do what they're meant to do, what they're being paid for.
Yeah, technical.
It's hard building things from scratch, but we'll get there. We'll get there. So bear with it. So anyway, this has been awesome. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for being part of the show. This is Travis on the button pushing thingy. I haven't stuffed up too much except not turning on
You've
the microphones.
done well, Aaron. We miss you, but you've done well, Travis.
Yeah, I didn't turn on the microphones right out the start. I don't know if you noticed that or not. I know the people watching online did. Anyway, so we're going to get into some music once I find out where this mouse is. And is it working? No.
Catch you next
There
week.
it is. We will see you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.
I'm on my way from misery to happiness today. I'm on my way from misery to happiness today.